Hey there! If you've ever wanted to make a temperature blanket but got overwhelmed by the math, picking colors, or finding historical weather data, this video is for you. I'm going to walk you through using the project planner on temperatureblanket.com. It's a free tool that automates the entire planning process for you. My name is Thomas and I'm the developer of the site. I'll show you how to get weather data for your location, how to choose yarn colorways, and how to set up your temperature ranges. Finally, you'll be able to preview what your project might look like. To get started, go to temperature-blanket.com. You can do this on your phone, but I'm going to be showing you on a laptop computer with a bigger screen. This is the project planner. Before you do anything else, type in a location here. Make sure you choose one of the drop-down results. The default duration is 1 year, meaning your project will span a full year from the date you choose. The custom duration allows you to select a shorter period of time. If you're making a temperature blanket to represent a past year, just select that previous year. You can also choose a starting month and day. If you're making a blanket to represent the current year, you might be tempted to select the current year immediately. And you can do that, but the problem is you'll have missing weather data for the days that haven't happened yet. This means you won't be able to fully preview what your project will look like. Also, some features like automatically calculating your temperature ranges might not turn out quite the way you want if there's missing data. So what I recommend, even if you're working on a project for the current year, is to start by choosing a previous year. This gives you a complete set of data to work with, giving you a much better idea of how the final project might look. Once you've finished setting up the rest of your project, you can always come back to the Location tab and swap out the year to the current one. Click Add Location to include multiple locations. Maybe you went on vacation and you want to include that in your project. After you select your location and date, go ahead and search for weather data. You'll see a chart and a table with all your data. Toggle between Fahrenheit or Celsius. You can also choose to group your weather data by weeks, which is great if you want a shorter project or fewer rows. In the weather table, click Show Color Details to see which color is assigned to each temperature based on your gauge, which we'll set up in the next step. All this data can be downloaded as a PDF or CSV file. The PDF is great for printing and following along as you work. Next to each day's temperature, it shows which color to use. The number is the corresponding color from your temperature gauge. The CSV file is useful if you want to import the data into a spreadsheet. Let's say you notice a temperature that looks a little off. You can actually select it right here in the table and update it manually. Just note that any changes you make to the weather data are only saved to your browser. Speaking of saving, you don't need an account to save your work. Projects are saved to your browser and as a specific URL that you can share. By default, the project planner pulls data from a service called OpenMeteo. They partner with national weather services all over the world to provide an extensive data set of historical weather data. Click the Weather Source button to select a different weather model, or you can switch to a completely different provider like Meteostat. Now, what if you have your own data? Maybe you track the temperature manually in a journal, or you've downloaded a different data set from another website. You can actually import that data right here at the bottom of the page. To make sure your data is in the correct format, I recommend you first download the current weather data as a CSV file to use as a template. Open that file in a spreadsheet editor and simply replace the numbers with your own data. Make sure you don't change the first row of headings, only update the temperatures below it. Once you're done, export it as a CSV file and then import it back into the project planner. Next, let's look at choosing yarn colors and setting up your temperature ranges. Click the Colors tab. This is your temperature gauge. You can also add other gauges to track rainfall, snow, daytime, or even the phases of the moon. The first thing to do is choose how many colors you want. Most projects use between 6 and 15 colors, but it's totally up to you. These tools at the top are different ways to help you create a palette of colors. Browse palettes to find inspiration. There's thousands of pre-made color palettes from other users in the featured and gallery sections. You can even filter the results by yarn or location. The schemes are pre-made palettes that adjust dynamically when you change the number of colors. They're not based on any specific yarn colorways, but you can use them as a starting point. Match colors with real yarn colorways by clicking Find Matching Yarn here or here. Search for brands and yarns, then choose the best matching colorway. You can even set a default yarn, which will be automatically selected whenever you search. The Choose Colorways tool lets you create a palette from scratch. Select all the colorways you want to use. You can always change the order or remove colorways directly from the palette preview. The Image Palette tool generates a palette of yarn colorways based on a photo, either your own image or a random one. Click on the picture to add yarn colorways and rearrange or remove colorways from the palette preview. The Random tool generates a random palette of yarn colorways. Lock a colorway you like to keep it from changing. The Export/Import tool allows you to share your palette in a variety of formats and import a palette from HTML hex color codes, a project URL, or a coolers.co palette URL. Use the Sort tool to change the order of all the colors. Picking colors for your project is an important step, but don't get too attached to this palette right away. You might discover later, when we look at the preview, that you want to change some colorways. Remember, at any point you can come back to this Colors tab and try different combinations of colors. When you've got what you think is a nice looking palette, the next thing to do is set up your temperature ranges. By default, the project planner does the math for you. It looks at the high temperatures of each day for your location and automatically sets the ranges so that each color is used approximately the same number of times. To see how this looks in a project, click the Preview tab. Whenever you change colors or modify ranges, the preview image will automatically update. Back in the Colors tab, you can edit each individual temperature range or click Configure Ranges to modify how they're automatically set up. Changing the ranges will affect the distribution of colors in your project. Play around with modifying these ranges and then look at the preview to see how it affects your project. Change the direction to have your ranges go from low to high temperatures. Manual means you can set all the ranges to use the same increment. For example, you can have all the ranges be 10-degree increments, starting from, say, 100 degrees. Automatic calculates the range increments for you, evenly distributing the number of times each color is used based on this balance focus setting. Say you choose low temperature days as the balance focus. All the range values update so that each color is used about the same number of times based on the low temperature of each day. Range increments sets the same increment for each range using the highest and lowest overall temperatures of your location to calculate the optimal increment value. To get an even more precise distribution of colors, you can tell the system to use decimals in your range values. Seeing the number of days in each range is super useful for estimating how much yarn you might need. If you make a sample swatch, you can use these percentages to figure out how many skeins of each color you need to buy. First, choose which temperatures you want to track, the high, the average, or the low. Calculate how much total yarn you'll need based on your sample swatch. Then use the percentages for estimating how many skeins of each color to buy. A question I get a lot is, why do these numbers repeat? Why is the to value of one range the same as the from value of the next? It's a little technical, but here's the quick explanation. Imagine one range ends at 10 degrees and the next starts at 9 degrees. In which range would you put a temperature of 9.5 degrees? Do you ignore the decimal point and put it in the second range, or do you round the number up and put it in the first range? I asked this question in a survey, and people's opinions were pretty evenly split. To avoid confusion and gaps, we could use decimals in the range values. For example, if the first range ends at 10, the second range would start at 9.999. Now it's clear in which range 9.5 should go, but 9.999 is long and kind of messy. So by default, what the project planner does is it treats the from value as inclusive and the to value as exclusive. Remember these math symbols? Less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. A temperature is included in a range if the from value of the range is greater than or equal to the temperature, and the temperature is greater than the to value of the range. Basically, a temperature of exactly 10 degrees goes into the range that starts with 10 degrees, not the one that ends with 10 degrees. This ensures every possible temperature gets assigned a color without leaving any gaps in your project. So now that we've picked a location, selected yarn colorways, and set up temperature ranges, let's look more at this preview tab. If you haven't already, I encourage you to click through the different pattern previews. This can help you decide what you want your blanket to look like. Below the image, you can adjust settings like the size and layout of the pattern. Make sure to select which temperatures you'll be tracking, the high, the average, or the low temperatures. As you update these settings, the system will adjust the preview image accordingly. Here's a tip. If the preview looks like it lacks variety, if there's lots of clumps of colors, check the setting for which temperatures you're tracking. If the colors are based on each day's low temperature here, for example, you probably also want to make sure that your temperature ranges are calculated based on the low temperature of each day. So go back to the Colors tab, click Configure Ranges, and change the Balance Focus setting to Low Temperatures. Now the preview shows a lot more color variety. Each of these patterns has different settings to make it look the way you want. I won't explain all the different options in this video, but I encourage you to play around with changing settings to see how they affect the preview image. After you've settled on colors, temperature ranges, and the pattern you like, make sure to save your work so you can come back to it later. It's a good idea to copy this URL somewhere where you can find it again, in case you want to open it on a different device. You can also share your project in the gallery, which lets other users see and open it. The gallery page is a showcase of all the amazing projects people have planned. The last and final step is an exciting one. Start making your project. Note that the preview and yarn colorways in the project planner are just a representation of what your project might look like. The color of your yarn will look different holding it in your hand versus what you see on a screen. Before you buy your yarn colorways, it's a good idea to see them all in real life next to each other. If you haven't already, download and print the PDF file. It includes your temperature gauge and it shows you which yarn colorways to use for each row. Check off each row as you complete it. Please note that the project planner doesn't generate a row-by-row written pattern. You can follow any temperature blanket pattern you like. You can even make something else besides a blanket, like a snake or a scarf. I hope this resource helps take some of the stress out of planning your project. If you have any questions or run into issues, see the contact page and feel free to reach out. Feedback from people like you helps improve the site for everyone. Finally, I want to say a big thank you to my supporters on Ko-fi.com. If you'd like to become a supporter, check out the link in the description. Thanks for watching and enjoy making your project.